The Rarity of True Faith, Chapter 6. Subhuti asked the Buddha, Bhagavan, will there be sentient beings who, upon hearing these teachings, will give rise to true faith? The Buddha replied to Subhuti, do not say such things. Even 500 years after the Tathagata's parinirvana, there will be those who uphold precepts and cultivate merits. When they hear these words, when Naviturmakanasaman, they will generate true faith and recognize them as the truth. You should know that such people have not merely planted wholesome roots under one Buddha, nor 2, 3, 4, or 5 Buddhas, but have already planted countless wholesome roots in the presence of immeasurable Buddhas. Because of this, upon hearing these words, they will give rise to a single thought of pure faith. Subhuti, the Tathagata, knows and sees all. These beings will attain boundless merit. Why? Because they have no attachment to self-atman, no attachment to others Pudala, no attachment to sentient beings, sattva, and no attachment to the notion of a lifespan jiva. Moreover, they do not attach to the notion of dharma, nor do they cling to the notion of non-dharma. If these beings grasp at any notion in their minds, then they are already clinging to self, others, sentient beings, and lifespan. If they attach to the notion of dharma, they are also clinging to these 4 attachments. If they attach to the notion of non-dharma, they are still clinging to these 4. Therefore, one should not grasp at dharma nor at non-dharma. That is why the Tathagata often says, monks, you must understand that my teachings are like a raft, used to cross a river. Even the dharma must eventually be let go of, how much more so non-dharma. True faith is rare and precious because it is difficult to attain. Subhuti asked the Buddha whether people would believe. If they were told that all forms are illusory, in the time of the Buddha, the dominant belief system was theism. The idea that there is nothing permanent to rely on, that all phenomena arise through causes and conditions and are fundamentally empty, was even harder to believe than it is today. Even now in India, people still worship at the Ganges River. Deeply immersed in theistic traditions, it took over 2,600 years for modern science, through figures like Stephen Hawking, to propose that the universe could come into existence without a creator, simply through causes and conditions. Despite scientific confirmation of the Buddha's teachings, sentient beings still struggle to believe in them. Only those who uphold precepts, cultivate virtue, and have accumulated merit over many lifetimes will develop faith. Even coming to the temple to hear the Dharma requires merit. Those with heavy karmic burdens or strong attachments may not even have the opportunity. Even if they attend, they may not truly hear the teachings. If one is attached to their desires, how can they understand the teaching of letting go? Those who have cultivated the 10 wholesome precepts, Dasha Kushala Karmapatha, will have an easier time generating faith. Just as a healthy person resists illness better, a person who has accumulated merit and virtue naturally finds faith arising within them. It is meaningless to visit a temple simply to beg the Buddha for blessings. No matter how much one prays, they cannot escape the consequences of their past actions, karma. If someone has harmed others in the past, they will inevitably face the corresponding karmic results. Even if one forgets their misdeeds, the beings they harmed have not forgotten. Karma will ripen in this life or the next, manifesting as suffering. This is the unshakable law of cause and effect, karma vipaka. As taught by the Buddha, the only way to change karma is through sincere repentance and seeking forgiveness from those one has harmed. Instead of creating more negative karma, one should cultivate merit and wisdom. True faith does not come from intellectual understanding alone, but from deeply internalizing and practicing the teachings. If one hears teachings on the emptiness of the 5 aggregates, Panchaskandha Shunyata, and the emptiness of all phenomena, and they generate faith, they have not just encountered 1 or 2 Buddhas in past lives, they have accumulated immeasurable merit over countless lifetimes. Changing one's karma is extremely difficult. That is why, even when one aspires to practice, they often struggle to follow through. If we examine ourselves, we can see this clearly. How much merit have we accumulated in this lifetime? How many times have we genuinely helped others? If faith arises effortlessly upon hearing the Dharma, it is because one has planted deep seeds of merit in past lives. This is why the Buddha taught Dharma according to each being's capacity. To those capable, he taught the path to liberation. To others, he taught skillful means to accumulate merit. Even the great lay disciple Anathapindika, though a devout Buddhist, was not encouraged by the Buddha to renounce his household life, as his conditions were not yet ripe. The Buddha's wisdom lay in teaching, According to Pratya Samutpada, the law of dependent origination, thus those who develop faith in the Vajrakhedika Prajaparamita Sutra Diamond Sutra will attain immeasurable merit. Because they have already transcended attachment to self, others, beings, and lifespans. Clinging to concepts leads to conflict. Even Dharma itself is a conceptual framework. Great philosophers, from Socrates to Confucius, created systems of ethics and morality. However, even these became sources of endless debate. During the Joseon dynasty, the Confucian principles of benevolence, righteousness, propriety, and wisdom were meant to promote harmony. Yet the period was marked by political purges and ideological conflicts. Religious fundamentalism has also caused immense suffering. For over 2,000 years, Christianity and Islam have waged wars, each claiming sole possession of truth. The teachings of the Buddha are neither an eternal truth nor a falsehood. They serve as a medicine for suffering. The great sage Ashvaghosa wrote in The Awakening of Faith, Mahayana Shradotpadashastra. Ultimately, no single doctrine can be grasped, but for the sake of sentient beings, we establish a teaching, the gate of suchness and the gate of birth and death. Thus, the Dharma exists solely to guide sentient beings beyond suffering. Letting go of the raft. The Buddha taught that even the Dharma is like a raft used to cross a river. Once one reaches the other shore, one should not cling to the raft. The Dharma is a skillful means upaya, a prescription for treating the illness of suffering. Those who realize the truth no longer need to cling to it. How much less should one cling to worldly doctrines or ideologies? When someone asked Zhaozhou Joshu, does a dog have Buddha nature? He replied, Moo, no. The person struggled with this, contemplating for 8 years, until their mind broke free from conceptual attachments, leading to awakening. Likewise, when someone asked the Dalai Lama, are you an emanation of Avalokiteshvara? He laughed and waved his hand, replying, if I were, would I be out of breath just from walking over here? When asked to pray for someone, he replied, I can pray, but I don't think my prayers are particularly effective. Laughter. Such words, simple and humble, carry the deepest truth.